Oh my god, Zach Romero, where have you been? You've lost some hair, you've gained some weight, what's been happening? I don't know. I was locked in a dungeon by Pistol Danger for the last year, I guess, and I'm old, and I've got gray in my beard, and it sucks. I don't know what you want from me. But nevertheless, welcome to another episode of The Final 30. This is a film experiment where I go through and watch the last half an hour of a random B movie, and then at the end decide if it's something I want to start over from the beginning and watch again, or if I want to go sit crisscross applesauce style in rush hour traffic. Now, today's film is a little piece of Asian sensation from 1978 called Breakout from Oppression. And I have to start by saying I'm kind of impressed. You see, in most cheap film box sets, you usually have a pretty big assortment of films from Asia, because from like the 60s to the 80s, unless you had Godzilla in the name of your Asian film, it pretty much got dumped in the American public domain. So in a lot of these collections, you typically have a bunch of Bruce Lee movies that Bruce Lee never starred in, or anything else under the sun. So I'm shocked that we have come 10 films in for me, and this is our first piece of Asian cinema. With that all being said, let's dive into what makes up Breakout from Oppression. So we start with this young woman preparing dinner in the most threatening manner possible to somebody's grandma.
Too damn nice to everybody. He wasn't included in my plan.
I have no fucking clue what this female rising sun Gordon Ramsay is yammering on about. However, if the terrifyingly unbalanced episode of Chopped premieres on Food Network, you bet your ass I would watch that show religiously. So we sloppily jump to a missing newspaper reporter named Simon. The office is all in a tizzy about his disappearance, and his girlfriend, Asian April O'Neil, is the #1 suspect. But oh ho! Turns out Simon is trapped in a basement somewhere and ew! Get off of me, you booger! Anyway, our furious chef from earlier appears in the basement and is apparently behind everything. What a reveal, I guess. So now it's a race against time as Cooking Mama tries to murder April O'Neil, who's in the midst of a 5-alarm mental breakdown since Simon is missing. Eventually, Sheffy sneaks into the hospital and attempts to give her arch nemesis the long cuckoo's nest goodnight. Unfortunately, it's at this point we find out that for being a serial killer, Crazy Pants over here has the upper body strength of an 8-year-old and gets the brush off by her would-be victim. So now we get this almost Hitchcockian homage out of nowhere. But don't get too comfy. The movie decides that the genre change is short-lived, so after this kind of artsy moment, we finally come to the conclusion of this thriller. So first note I have to make, the soundtrack of this movie is surprisingly badass. It almost sounds like an alternate universe John Carpenter score. It reminds me of something like something in the back of my head. Like something I haven't thought about in forever. Anyways, the final fight is this dynamic cat and mouse game between these two women and is actually pretty goddamn intense. And so we come to this point where all the pieces are supposed to come together. We're waiting to see what the killer's motivation is, see how this thriller finally reaches its conclusion. But never mind that shit, here comes Friday the 13th! That's right, the climactic fight ends with a near identical decapitation to the original Friday the 13th, even down to the survivor drifting in a canoe until sunrise. Now wait a minute. This film was supposed to come out in 1978. The first Friday the 13th didn't come out till 1980. How did this unknown Asian film get the jump on one of the most famous slasher movies of all time? That doesn't make any goddamn sense. Yes, simply because I want to see what else is going on in this Frankenstein mystery of a movie. Between the synth soundtrack stolen from the film Thief, the out-of-place slasher ending, I have to do some digging to find out what the story is here. So as it turns out, Godfrey Ho is the maestro of this film chop job. Now for those unfamiliar, Godfrey Ho is considered the Ed Wood of Hong Kong cinema, famous for cut and pasting films together by including separately filmed scenes into existing Hong Kong martial arts films. So the story goes that Godfrey found this unfinished film in the basement of a film studio, dubbed it in English, slapped a stolen soundtrack on, and jammed an ending taken from one of the most popular films of the time, Friday the 13th. So, although the film was presented like a relic from 1978, in actuality it was released closer to like 1984, 1985, with these Godfrey Ho changes to fill in the gaps that were unfinished, and that's Breakout from Oppression.
I'll get the best lawyer for you.